that ass back like a boom, 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 boom.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and you're very welcome to the latest edition of DriveThru Sports Weekly. Now, again, as I have been lately, I would slightly apologise because I am sure at this stage it's slightly more than a week, but with the way the world is going, I'm sure people can understand that there are a lot of things going excuse me, through a person's mind at a time like this, and time can indeed get away from a person. But anyway, unfortunately, I had hoped by now that we could have had some actual live GA to talk about, but alas, that is not to be, because the GA are still being sycophantically obedient to the government, most likely because they're after more money, God bless them. They're probably playing the poor mouth again, for the simple reason that if you look at any of the other sports, soccer or rugby, or they all have plans in place as to when they are hoping to resume meaningful action, whereas the GA, all they seem to be doing is continually putting back things and postponing putting plans in place. So unfortunately, from that point of view, we have actually nothing of any great note to talk about on the GA front. But moving on to soccer, and what I have often referred to previously as the circus that is the transfer window just concluded across the water in the past couple of days. So there wasn't really a whole pile of major talking points, shall we say, but as you will hopefully have seen by now, in a piece I published this morning, I was just saying that while there was plenty of strange goings on with some of the clubs during the transfer window, for example, Arsenal and Liverpool letting players out on loan who specialise in positions where they don't appear, at least, to have an inordinate amount of cover, but the main thrust of what I was sort of commenting on this morning was that it basically hadn't been a great transfer window from an Irish perspective, in that you had Tottenham Hotspur's. Well, when I say Tottenham Hotspur, he's still officially employed by them. Young Troy Parrott, who they had released on loan to Millwall, has now left the den. Now, in fairness, getting away from Millwall at any time is probably not a bad thing, but what it has meant is that the ex-Belvedere football club man has actually dropped down a league to League One, where he is now on the books of Ipswich Town. Now, the Irish internationals playing at a decent level in England are sort of few and far between. Like, I mean, you have John Egan and Stephen, Enda Stevens. You've John Egan and Enda Stevens, with Sheffield United, who are of course presently at the bottom of the Premier League, and you have Jeff Hendrick, who is with Newcastle, who are struggling far more than a club of their size and stature and status should be. Excuse me. Although, having said that, they have actually in the last week or two actually just put a couple of performances together which would lead one to believe and hope that they may actually be about to turn a corner. And I say hope because I would be very, very fond of Steve Bruce, and always have been. I think he was one of the best central defenders I ever seen playing, and himself and Gary Pallister, when they were at their peak, were certainly among the best combinations I ever seen playing. Now, there has been nothing or nobody, I think, so far to usurp the position, in my judgment, held by the Arsenal back four of yesteryear. Well, back five if you include David Seaman, Lee Dixon, Tony Adams, Martin Keown and Nigel Winterburn, was as good a defensive unit as I think I have ever seen certainly in English football now. But the thing about it was, Steve Bruce, wherever he has gone, in management anyway, wherever he has gone, he has invariably improved things to a certain degree anyway. Now, I do realise, I think he has been relegated with clubs on a few different occasions, but and I know that makes a complete contradiction maybe of what I just said previously before that, but I do remember him getting Hull to an FA Cup final in which they actually led 2-0 early on before they were eventually defeated, but and then on a personal level, I know Steve was a great racing fan and a regular, well, when things were normal, whatever that is, was a fairly regular visitor to Ireland at the races, and just as I say, certainly in my lifetime would rank among the best English players who never got an international cap. And in view of the fact that his son Alex went on and played with the Republic of Ireland for a while before transferring to Northern Ireland, one wonders, could Steve have come this way himself many years ago? But look, that is neither here nor there. The point I was getting at was that when you have John Egan and the Stevens and Jeff Hendrick being the top ranked Irish players, I suppose you would call them, at the moment, with regard to where their clubs are positioned, it sort of gives you some indication of where the Irish players' stock lies with regard to their stature within English football. I mean, when you look at Seamus Coleman now, is sort of only in and out of the Everton team, and ditto Matt Doherty at Spurs, where I think last week anyway, Jose Mourinho treated the Irish fullback with nothing short of disdain. And when you see like a club like Southampton, who were of course beaten 9-0 last night by Manchester United, turning around and basically letting Shane Long go on loan to Bournemouth when they had 3 or 4 teenagers in their squad due to a dearth of due to a dearth of fit first team players. It sort of doesn't speak very well for what's thought of the great Tipperary man when Ralph Husenhutel, despite all the injury problems he has, can still see fit to send him out on loan. Moving on next to darts, and as I've repeatedly either written or said in these videos over the last while, the darts are one of the few things that even without any lockdown or any of that nonsense that's going on, have always, in more recent years anyway, have always been sort of part of the staple sporting diet, which is made negotiation through life's bumpy road, shall we say, a little bit more palatable even, but last weekend just the Ladbrokes Masters was on in Milton Keynes. Well, all the dart tournaments are taking place in Milton Keynes at the moment, but the Ladbrokes Masters was on, and you see, when it comes to yours truly watching darts, to make it workable, that number one, it's enjoyable for me, and number two, to leave me in a position where I can actually work about it after. It's an essential part of how I do things, that I'm able to pause it and rewind it and record it and watch it again, and things like that. Now, of course, with the darts being on ITV4 last weekend, that wasn't an option, for the simple reason that you cannot record on the likes of ITV4 from the Sky platform, because ITV4 is not part of the Sky platform, but through various other pieces of technology and available avenues, on Monday, that being yesterday, or what day is today? Today is Wednesday. On Monday, I did actually manage to get my hands on enough material just to catch up with what went on in Milton Keynes over the weekend. And of course, the big news in it was that the overall winner at the end of the 3 days hectic action was Jonny Clayton of Wales. Now, it was absolutely great to see the ferret, as they call him, finally making a breakthrough, because he had been knocking on the door for a long time and without making the breakthrough. But anyone that doubted his suitability or qualification to be at the business end of these events got their answer over the Christmas period, I think. Now, yes, ultimately he did lose out to Joe Cullen in an absolute belter of a match, but the fact that he managed to stay in the contest with Cullen for as long as he did, I think was signpost enough for me that it was evidence of his game going to another new level. And that manifested itself over the weekend, where he not only knocked out Michael van Gerwen, for whom the struggles continue, but he also went on and defeated the equally resurgent Mervyn King in the final by 11 legs to 8, and in so doing guaranteed himself the last slot in the Premier League whenever the opportunity to start that particular competition off comes around. Now, moving on to news of rugby, and to a story which I must admit I only really picked up on late last night or this morning indeed, even though I should have copped there was something happening back as far as whenever Munster played Leinster in Thomond Park, which I think is about a fortnight or 3 weeks ago. I refer, of course, to the announcement that none other than Paul O'Connell has joined Andy Farrell's backroom staff with the Irish team ahead of Sunday's Six Nations opener against Wales as forwards coach. Now, of course, what Paulie achieved as a player hardly needs any further elaboration by me, but his transfer into coaching, certainly from my own perspective anyway, has came about a bit quicker than I was expecting, and I think my sources down in Limerick were sort of caught a little bit off guard as well. Now, of course, what in one sense shouldn't have been a surprise was that when he did take his first ginormous footstep into coaching, that it was in fact in France, where of course he had originally intended to go and finish his playing career, but as it transpired, he never actually got to play a game of rugby in France in the sense of being based or being employed over there, because he suffered a very bad hamstring injury, which I've seen sports people in other codes and disciplines being afflicted with, and whereas somebody of slightly more tender years, shall we say, could either give themselves the time to recover from the injury, or B, have the surgery, which is part of the rehab in some cases for it, and give themselves the time to rehab from it and come back maybe stronger at Paulie's age and in the twilight zone of his career. I suppose there was no point in trying to absolutely bust himself at that stage. So the crossover or transition, I suppose would describe it better, into coaching, it came along when it did, and I will admit, and I know, look, anybody that has been reading my material or come across my material for long enough will know that there is a very special personal and indeed family connection with the Munster rugby scene. There also is, or was, with Leinster when Sean O'Brien was still lining out with the lads in blue before going to London Irish. But I have gone on record previously and will now again that from my own personal perspective, in terms of wheelchair facilities or disabled viewing facilities, if you want to put it another way, I have never come across anything to rival or even get near Thomond Park in terms of having facilities to watch a match from. But even besides that, it's fairly well known at this stage that Manchester United, Old Trafford even, is known as the theatre of dreams. And look, having been there, unfortunately only once, I can totally understand why the fixed acronym is totally befitting of the place, but there's no doubt, for similar reasons in a different context, Thomond Park definitely is hallowed ground in its own right, and for that reason, I suppose, and a little bit of sentimentality, I would have hoped that Paul O'Connell would have come home maybe to manage Munster at some stage. I know in my own head the dream ticket would have been to have Paul O'Connell and Ronan O'Gara managing Munster at some point in the not too distant future, but my sources tell me that it is probably more likely that the two boys may well link up as part of an Irish management ticket going forward. So so that would be extremely well worth looking forward to, but it'll be very, very interesting to see now how the national team get on in their Six Nations opener against Wales next Sunday, because, well, Leinster have been running away with they're doing their business in the Pro 14 up to this point, as one, to be honest, would only expect. So, realistically, any number of the Leinster players could justifiably have been included in Andy Farrell's squad, but having not honestly studied the squad in its entirety, such has been the sorry folks. Such has been the impact on Munster since their atrocious effort against Leinster in Thomond Park about a month ago or whatever it is now. I honestly don't know which or if any of the Munster guys are really standing out like a lighthouse that much, because at the end of the day, and I think I either spoke about this previously or will certainly have written about in an article around that time, that at the end of the day, when the heat come on, and I use that expression metaphorically because the night of the actual game, as some of you may remember, was absolutely Baltic. Indeed, there was a torrential downpouring of snow about 20 minutes or a half an hour before the kick-off. But at the end of the day, when the heat came on and the game was there for the taking, so to speak, Conor Murray resorted to the tried and untrusted tactic of repeatedly box kicking out off the base of the scrum, which of course basically amounted to giving possession straight back to Leinster, and it reminded me of what the local GP who got a couple of caps for Ireland in his day in 1977, Dr. Tom Feary, said to me at one time about playing the French, and I think it was around the time when at that stage Ireland hadn't beaten France for donkey's years, and Tom's theory was you just want to put the ball up your jersey and leave it there for the day. In other words, if you have it, hold on to it, rather than this particular I hate using the word obsession, because I don't know whether it's at the hand of Murray himself or whether he's acting on instruction from the sideline. But I fail to see the logic, and if somebody can explain it to me in a way that makes sense, I take my hat off to them. But I fail to see the logic in continually box kicking off the base of the scrum, because effectively all you're doing is giving the ball straight back to the opposition, which of course starts the cycle then of the energy sapping tackles trying to overturn the ball or win the ball back or whatever. And that's without even mentioning, for example, what felt like anyway an inordinate amount of missed tackles by Munster in that game a few weeks ago. But there's something telling me, whether it's good instinct or whatever you want to call it, that the national team are sort of either heading for or in the midst of a period of transition. So I think we will have a lot clearer picture of where the prospects for the national team realistically stand after taking on Wales at the weekend. Moving on briefly to horse racing, and it's been sort of hard of late to find a little bit of action to talk about, owing to the amount of fixtures that have been lost due to inclement weather, both in Ireland and across the water. But that's not to say, of course, that the big stories haven't kept coming, and I suppose one of which would undoubtedly have been the removal of Charles Burns's licence, I suppose we would say, or ban, or whatever you want to call it, for 6 months owing to a horse failing a drug test for a prohibited substance. Now, I'm sure there are some wiser people than I out there who will explain to me the whole ins and outs of it, but to my mind, last week Burns was banned for 6 months, as I say, owing to a sample that was taken from a horse called Viking Horde, what I think was nearly 3 years ago. But there's two things that puzzle me. Number one, the fact that it has taken so long for the case to come to fruition at all. It's surely to God, it's not like the human courts whereby there's backlogs and hold-ups and backups and whatever one wants to call it. But even more confusing in that, and again, this is only me, if I'm missing something glaringly obvious here, or I'm missing out on something in some way, I hold my hand up and apologise. But what I actually found, I was going to say amusing, but that wouldn't be the right word at all, confusing most definitely, was that after the suspension of Burns was announced, I noticed, certainly for a day or two after, at the very least, he still has had runners taking part. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who know the stipulations about things and why matters are the way they are. So if there's anyone out there listening that understands this better than I do, I would be in your debt if you could reply in the comments and advise me as to the reasoning, because look, no matter how much one might think one is tuned into a given situation, there is not a day goes by that anybody can't learn something. And if somebody could advise me as to what the procedure is there and as to why things are the way they are, I would be indebted to them greatly. As for activity on the track, well, of course, the much vaunted Dublin Racing Festival is upon us at the moment, and I know a lot of the focus on it in previous years has been to try and get overseas runners in to make the racing more competitive and attract a bigger audience, which in itself leads to the knock-on effect of greater sponsorship and more sponsors and excuse me folks, and at the end of the day, a boon for Irish racing, a boon for Leopardstown, and you would imagine either directly or a roundabout sort of way a positive knock-on effect for those that are in sponsoring races and the like. But of course that has been somewhat knocked on the head this year because horses from the UK or indeed further afield, as we have seen an American based trainer having runners in these parts for the last couple of weeks, but apologies there folks. But of course, the overseas, well, certainly the ones from across the sea, won't be coming to Leopardstown this year, and of course there being no spectators present either. So you would hope that the current circumstances don't have too much of a negative impact on on the viability of the Dublin Racing Festival and on Irish racing itself, simply because the times are different now from what they were even when I became properly invested in racing about 20 years ago or whatever, and everything and anything which can be done to keep it as much of an attractive product as is possible should be done and must be done. So events like COVID-19 and and specifically arising from same the inability of overseas runners, and therefore to attract the overseas spectator, does not is not a lucky break for those organising the event, and you would hope that sooner rather than later some semblance of normality or whatever passes for it would be able to be restored to things, and that spectators will be allowed back, and eventually the future of the thing can be properly secured and assured, and that it will be something that will be in place longer term, rather than some short term thing that ends up in a damn squib sort of. Although I think there's enough sensible and powerful people involved within Irish racing to not allow something like that be derailed. But at the same time, in the current climate and given current circumstances, it's just something that people will have to be careful about. And I am just looking at the television here over my left shoulder, and the Liverpool-Brighton game should have been kicking off now, but I noticed the lights at Anfield have gone out, so you would hope that's not something that would last for too long, for tonight anyway, because I have to say, if there are a few half decent things to come about because of this whole lockdown situation, and the lights are back on, and I see our Irishman Kevin Kelleher is making his second Premier League appearance in goal for the defending champions in the league this season, and they seem to be underway there. But look, just to get back to the racing and to finish up, you would hope and indeed expect that the Dublin Racing Festival will survive this year's awkward circumstances, and can go on to build on what it certainly achieved in its first couple of years. As for the racing itself, well, I think you'd be sort of looking to see how some of the what will represent the leading fancies for the Irish at the Cheltenham Festival in a little over a month will either bolster or damage their prospects before they go over there. You're thinking of horses like Abracadabras and Alaho, and there are innumerable others which I just cannot think of at the minute now, but they were the two that I had in my head, for the simple reason that I was just apologies folks, I was just in the middle there of putting an anti-post bet for the best 4-day sport of the year together. And I know Allaho, Abracadabras, and the Willie Mullins trained Chacon Por Soy were three of what's got into it, and I've one more to go in, which is going to be Sir Gerhard from the Gordon Elliott stable, but fear not, we will be talking an awful lot more about the Cheltenham Festival nearer to the time, but in terms of the action at Leopardstown, as I say, horses like Abracadabras, Allaho, Chacon Poursois, and horses like that will be certainly, I suppose, putting their credentials on the line to see as to what shape they are in to go over to Prestbury Park next month. So hopefully by the time the 2 days of action at the Fox Rock venue are completed, the picture with regard to Irish prospects going forward will be decidedly clearer. Finally, for this week, just to finish up with a short mention of basketball and the NBA in particular. Now, as anyone who has read my material over an elongated period of time will know that basketball and a passion for same was one of the few happy memories I have left from my time at one particular juncture of my education, and it as I would have always said previously as well, it can either be a great help with insomnia if one is awake when games tend to be on in the middle of the night Irish time, or they can be a great way of filling in days when a day that's dragging, or a day when things are going wrong and one needs a lift or whatever. But I just noticed, I don't know, was it today or yesterday or when, but it was recently anyway, that it sort of gave me a chuckle in its own way to see a headline about LeBron James saying that he missed the interaction with the fans because in some parts of America anyway, they have begun to let spectators back into the basketball, and of course I think anyone, unless you've had your head buried under a rock for the best part of the last year will know the absolute balls Donald Trump and the Trump administration had made of trying to deal with COVID-19 in the States, but it would appear that from the time the Biden administration have got in, that they must have a fairly good handle on things, because spectators are slowly but surely being allowed back into American sports. And of course, on the first night they were back, the great LeBron James, who is probably the best player in the game at the moment, although some, myself included, would be inclined to disagree with that assessment, but he did become involved in a little bit of a spat with a fan during the Lakers game earlier this week, and his when asked about it, his response basically was that he had actually missed the interaction between himself and the fans, but that doesn't belie the fact that in some cases fans can be a little bit raucous, to say the least. But I suppose in one way I'm saying to myself, it's good to see spectators back at sport, and you're sort of saying to yourself, well, if they could let 9,500 or whatever it was into basketball games recently, you wonder why the Irish couldn't open up GA matches to the public at some level, or at least put them back on at some level sooner rather than later. But look, at least I think and hope and pray that even since the Biden administration took office, that whether this is literally or just psychologically in the mind, there definitely does seem to be a more stable foundation looking structure to the world. But hopefully, look, things will fall into place, as it were, and that it may not be, in fact, too long until we are back actually attending sports at venues and whatnot. But for now, folks, that'll do me. And this, as I say, was episode 12 of DriveThru Sports Weekly. And please remember to like, rate and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I will see you back here next week, please God, for the superstitious 13th episode of DriveThru Sports Weekly. Over and out.